Hey guys, a very good afternoon from BYJU'S Exam Prep. I'm Srinivas and I have my I have my colleague Mr. Vikrant. So we are here to take you through the IIFT paper that just got concluded about an hour ago from 10 to 12 today. So we're going to take you through the paper and in-depth analysis of how the paper was, what was happening in the section, how were each one of the sections different from the last year. And together we'll be presenting the entire scenario in front of you. So Vikrant, I'll start off with basically my experience with the center per se, and then I'll probably want to hear from you, your side too. I think, quite a few of us in Bangalore. So I wrote the exam in Bangalore, and a lot of my colleagues also from BYJU'S Exam Prep wrote the exam in Bangalore. The first thing about the exam center was it was not really convenient. It was very, very congested, and apparently a lot of centers were not really well managed. So even in my center, there was already another exam happening of BSNL. So there was a lot of confusion between people going for the BSNL exam and IIFT. There were people of, it was a bit chaotic at the beginning. So how was your experience from your side? You have taken the exam in which place?
More or less the same here. I wrote the exam in Delhi, and what I have observed over the years is that ever since we've moved over to these online exams, majority of these computer labs are usually at hard to reach places, and they are not going to be exactly very close to the city center or the larger areas. And with the advent of technology and people cheating now, I think the center staff has become more and more vigilant, which creates issues, which creates difficulties. So you can't wear a ring, a chain, earrings, and a lot of students reach the center and then they realize that none of those metal objects are actually allowed. So that is one challenge that people normally go ahead and face.
I think
then the second is that
I lost your connectivity. You can just
the systems that you usually have are pretty old. Most of us are accustomed to nowadays working on superior systems. So that challenge exists.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, I think I'm back. Yes. Right. So you're saying, sorry, I couldn't hear that.
No, that's fine. So I think it is more or less the same. For the last few years, I don't think I've had an experience which can be termed A+. We usually have some hassles or the others, but it's okay. That's how it is, I think. By now, we all are accustomed to it, and that's how it rolls. It was the first time today where I paid 20 rupees to deposit my car keys at the center. So that was something new.
In my case, the bags are just thrown out there. There are too many bags and too less places, too less slots to hold the bags. That is chaos. The other thing before we get into the exam paper per se is the exam interface. How did you find the interface this time, Vikrant?
No, the interface was usual, I think. Although since I generally teach English, that's the section that I focus more on. I normally prefer having access to the entire question paper on the full screen that quite a few of the other exams like the CAT, the SNAP offer. IIFT somehow does not offer it, so you have to toggle a lot. You have to kind of ensure that you continuously stay on the mouse.
The biggest problem was your speed will reduce, especially if you're looking at an RC. True. The RC was going beyond the screen. So, and there was no right drag. There was no right scroll. You have to first zoom out, minimize the screen, then the scroll bar will appear, and then you will have to drag.
Absolutely.
And if you do it too small, then you can't read what is happening. I mean, depending upon what kind of a site you have. So that was actually a pain point.
The students who are joining us are also saying more or less the same thing here.
Pathetic interface. So, yes. I totally agree with that sentiment there. And it's really, see, for you and me, I think we are writing it just for the analysis purpose, so you can read the passage, you can read the questions and move on. But for a student, it's getting onto the nerves actually, because you continuously have to keep doing that zoom in, zoom out, then right scroll, down scroll. It is more of navigational test than a test on the particular section there.
Absolutely. I think it can at times be a bit unsettling for a student. You're already under a lot of pressure, so we understand, but it's okay.
All right. So I'll just take you through the highlights, guys. We'll compare this paper to what happened last year, because we are always going to give cutoffs based on what were the actual cutoffs last year. So we usually analyze a paper with respect to what happened last 1 year or 2 years. So let's start off by understanding what was the paper pattern. Overall, the paper pattern was the same. It didn't change. The total number of questions were 110. The questions last year, last before year and this year, that was at least standard as far as IIFT is concerned. There were totally about 30 questions from Quant, 35 questions from VARC, you had 20 questions from general awareness, and you had 25 questions from 25 and 30, my bad, 25 and 30.
Absolutely.
30 from DILR. I think this was the total of 110, and this did change this year, right? In fact, the breakup also was more or less what is expected. Nothing, as far as the paper pattern and the breakup was concerned, I don't think, Vikrant, there was too much of a difference from what we were expecting. Yes, few questions, one or two more questions would have been given from a particular topic, but it is not really surprising. Don't you think so?
Very true. In terms of, I think the composition of the exam, it appears to have stabilized, and therefore no surprises there. Besides, on the instructions page itself, they had given that breakup in detail.
Yes.
So
yes.
Even before the exam started, we knew that there are going to be 25 RC questions, 25 quantitative aptitude questions, 16 RC, 19 VA, so on and so forth. So even before the exam started, you had a fair idea of what to expect when the
and
test
you can
starts.
formulate what to do exactly in that 2 or 3 minutes you will have there at that point in time.
True.
So guys, we believe that this year the overall paper was moderate in terms of difficulty level. Overall paper, section wise it might vary, but we would rate this overall paper as moderate or slightly more than moderate. It is not an easy paper by any stretch of imagination, for sure. I would not say this is a piece of cake. It is it is like a walk in the park. Definitely not. There were certain areas where you have to really struggle to get some good questions out of it. So that's a verdict as far as the overall paper is concerned, moderate and above, right? Quant, I would say it's slightly higher than last year. Now, those of you who have gone through our analysis of last year and what to expect, we released few videos this year too. If you've gone through that, you would be understanding my comparison better. Quant, the number of easy questions were comparable to last year. Last year we had 5 to 6 easy questions, and this year also I'm saying they were about 4 to 5 easy questions. The only difference this year is last year in that 5 to 6 easy questions, they were sitters. Sitters, my definition of a sitter is you read a question, you write one step and your answer is done. So they were about 4 questions to 3 questions that were sitters in an easy, within those 5, 6 easy also. However, this year, the number of sitters were only 1 or 2. In the entire, the 25 questions of Quant, of which I would say 4 to 5 were doable, easy. In those also, only 1 or 2 were very straightforward single line answers. The remaining concept is known, you know what to do, but it was a little bit lengthy or a little bit in terms of intense in terms of calculation, but it is not something which will really twist your head. But that's what the story goes when it comes to the easy questions. But once you move away from these 5, 6 questions, then it becomes a struggle. You had really lengthy calculations, unnecessary approximations to be done, and the worst part is when you are approximating, the options were not far apart. They were very, very close. Which means if your approximation is a bit over the required limit, then your answer will change. So that's one of the biggest problems that I found in the Quant section this year, because of which I will say that the overall section of Quant was comparable to last year, but if you look at difficulty level, it will be slightly higher. I would not say it's too different, but yeah, 1 question, at most 2 questions difference would be there between the last year and this year paper, right? Moving on to the English part, Vikrant, your take on English. How do you rate this paper this year?
If I compare it to the last year's exam, I'd say that the difficulty level went up a little. So what that basically means is that you still had quite a few easy questions. In fact, I'll just be using my cheat sheets that I wrote during the exam. So in the 4 passages, I have overall marked some 6 questions that are easy, that I believe anybody could have very easily attempted.
You're right. There are 2 passages which are easy to read also, if I'm not mistaken. You can easily read, and the questions are also not confusing.
Absolutely. I think anybody who prioritized the passage well, and we talk about it eventually, could very easily have started off on the right note. And I think 8, 9 questions are, anybody who's reasonably well prepared could have definitely attempted and answered 8 to 9 questions and gotten them right. So, but then, just like last year too, we had a passage where where the questions were tricky and difficult to answer. Similarly, this year too, we had this one passage with tricky questions, difficult questions, and then there was one more passage where the level of difficulty for a couple of questions was a bit higher as compared to what we found last year.
I don't remember which passage it is, but there was one passage where the options were very, very close. I think it was.
Absolutely, I think.
So
true.
In fact, I got really confused trying to figure out what is the difference between the options given there in the first place. Forget about getting the right answer. There were 2 or 3 very similar meaning sentences with slight differences. Unless you are really looking into it, you'll not find the sentences to be different. And in fact, there's one passage on international finance and currency manipulation. Where one question
the currency manipulation one was the one where questions
so that is where you need to, it was a bit more technical in nature. If you don't understand the terms, I think the entire passage goes for a toss. Even if you understand the passage, I think there are 1 or 2 questions where multiple options were correct. The question was which of the one will be most likely the correct answer or most likely the correct step followed by
there was this one almost a managerial decision making question.
Correct.
Absolutely.
So all 4 were given in the passage. You have to pick the one which is most appropriate given the particular question there. So so there were 1 or 2 passages. In fact, I would believe that there are 2 passages which a student could have attempted for sure. And depending upon how good the student is, the call should have been taken on the other 2 passages. I think that we both agree on that part as far as RC is concerned. But your take on
if somebody had to,
please.
Verbal ability. See, I think determining the difficulty level of verbal ability is usually a bit tricky because we know IIFT is a vocabulary dominant exam.
Correct.
And when it comes to vocabulary, what is easy and what is difficult becomes very subjective. So if you know the meaning of a word, it is easy. If you do not, it is difficult. So normally what I do is that I look at how frequently a word occurs around us.
Right.
So if I see a word is a high frequency word, I'm generally going to call it an easy word. But as it becomes less and less frequent, I'd call it a difficult word. And going by this criterion, I'd say that the words that were given to us this year were definitely difficult as compared to last year. So even usually the exam can be a bit tricky, but this year it turned out to be even more challenging.
Because last year, basically, I was going through the last year's paper yesterday so that I can give an analysis as a comparison. So when I was going through that, the first thing I noticed is the paper of RC part in English was very lengthy last year. So I was like making up my mind, okay, fine, RCs could be lengthy, so this year let's start with vocab. I started with vocab, first question, second question, third question, and then I kept looking at the screen. There were no green marks. It was all blue. It was all moving on to the next question, next question, next question. After about 6-7 questions, I realized, okay, this time IIFT really, messed my vocab up. Let's give up on vocab in the next 2-3 minutes, scan through it, whatever little I can, I will do. Let's go to RC. With a dread, I went to RC. Thankfully, I found the RC part to be done, and the first thing I noticed is the RC passages were short. It was not short, meaning the cat
length was.
Yeah, the cat length, not the crazy length which IIFT gave last year, 650 words, 600 words, and so.
True. Barring one of the passages, I think the rest were definitely.
They were reasonable, not crazy.
In fact, there was a passage which talked about that changing your subconscious to self-hypnosis, etc.
Yes.
That was slightly on the lengthier side, but the rest of them were definitely at par with.
But it was easy to understand. Even if it was lengthy, it was not something.
Easy to understand.
The points made, it was not too much philosophical in nature. It was it's not something which is really confusing or difficult for student to understand.
Absolutely.
So, guys, if you have just tuned into the session, so the verdict on the English part, the English section, is that Vikrant and I, we both agree that the RCs is where students could have scored well. And if you have started with vocab, you should have quickly realized that vocab is not the scoring area for English. If you want to get your cutoffs really well and move on to get some higher score in your English, probably it would have been done by the RC part. Even the good students would not have got too many corrects in the vocab part. In fact, I don't think getting about 5-6 is going to be easy at all in vocab out of the 19 questions given there, because most of the questions, as Vikrant was saying, were on the higher side of difficulty and not very commonly heard or seen words.
Right.
right?
Although I found in a couple of questions, considering that there were these multiple words and meanings that needed to be matched, there were a few questions where even if you knew the meanings of one or two of those words, you could have been in a better position to maybe answer it through elimination. But on the whole, yes, challenging. Tushar, no, there were no jumbled sentences this time around.
A jumbled passage?
No.
Yeah. So that
no parajumbles.
Parajumbles wasn't there. It's mostly vocab. So 19 questions, straight vocab. So there are two ways to look at it. 19 questions of vocab will get over in probably 6 minutes. So you'll have a lot of time left for your RC, but also it means that most of your corrects will have to come through RC. So you'll have to spend time on an RC. So your time management could have been an issue if the student is not really understanding what is happening in the paper. The third section is DILR. So this year, DILR is a breather. It's a saving grace of IIFT for those of you who are falling short in the overall totals. Last year, the DI was doable, but the LR was very difficult. This year, both DI and LR were doable. The beauty of this particular paper this year was in the logical part, there were 3 sets of only 2 questions each. So it is not that, like, unlike last year, you have a long set to read and then you have 3 questions or 4 questions that follow. This year we had small pieces of information given to us, followed by 2 questions. So you can actually go through these very, very quickly compared to doing one large set of 4 questions each. So that is the reason why I would say DI and LR both were doable. DI last year had crazy calculations for all the sets. This year DI had 1 or 2 sets which are not requiring you to go through a lot of numbers. There's one set I remember in DI which you could have done within about 5-6 minutes, 4 questions flat. Not very difficult at all. So yes.
So Srinivas, I read it in the comment box. Some students were saying that the paper was calculation heavy. Was that your experience?
So IIFT DI usually requires calculation, but that's the pleasant surprise this time. I will not say it is completely different, but it is lesser compared to what was expected. Last year DI, we had to call it easy because the entire section was moderate and above. So DI is where students should have spent time despite having lengthier calculations. Taking time, you still get some marks there. This year, the advantage is you had 1 or 2 easy sets in DI where the calculations are easy. You had 3 or 4 easier sets in logic where you can get the answer quickly. So you don't have to shift your entire focus only onto one part of DI and LR. If you're good in either of them or both, above average in both, you'd have a lot of sets for you to pick and answer. So you're not searching for sets this time. You keep going from one set to second set. You'll start seeing that more than 60-70% of the sets could be done. Yes, some of them will be lengthier, but because there are 70% sets that could be done, you can leave out few and stick to 50% of the paper and still get a very good score out of it. And the questions were not tricky. The DI questions were not really tricky at all. The LR questions, yes, there were 1 or 2 sets which are difficult. In fact, there's only one set which I will call it as a higher difficulty level, which I'll talk about it in a while. But otherwise, the sets were doable in DILR. Okay.
True. So on the whole, my experience was that anybody who has attended our classes regularly would have encountered all those question types. So it's not that
So in fact,
there was a question type that'll force you to think how to solve it.
We were taking the benchmark as last year. So this year, anybody who has practiced last year level of difficulty like what we have been given in the mocks, I think the students would be able to easily breeze through the DILR section without a doubt.
True.
And GK, not really my forte. So I felt it was difficult. I'm sure quite a few of the students would usually feel difficult. But how did you find, Vikrant, the GK part, general awareness?
So normally when I look at GK section, I generally try and see how many questions we have from current affairs and how many are from static GK. And I normally believe that when it comes to current affairs, a reasonably good student can at least answer those questions. So for example, we have these, some of these questions are very conventional. We know that Nobel Prize winners can be asked, right? That's a high probability
apparently
question.
That question was repeated. It was asked in 2021 IIFT, it seems.
Okay. And then you had this question on Dada Saheb Phalke Award. You had this question from Russia-Ukraine war by Bayraktar TB2 drones and which country supplies them. So I think somebody who's following the newspapers and reads them We needed to basically, that individual could have answered quite a few questions, but once...
Yeah, please.
There was this one surprise. I had this tendency to believe that when you look at current affairs, the examiner would not ask you anything beyond September. But this time around, we actually had a question based on an event which happened in November.
Yes, 2022
summit.
November
So
G20 summit. In fact,
True.
G20 summit December happened in Bangalore.
Okay.
Yeah, so
that was a little surprise.
Just recently happened.
So that was a surprise. So that basically means that at least when I talk to the students, I'll tell them to cover everything till November.
All right.
So let's see.
Okay. So let's quickly move on to the paper pattern. This was, as I said, this was as expected. Quant 25, RC 35, RC and English basically 35. DI and LR 30 and general awareness 20. So here there is no surprises at all, guys. This is straightforward. For the last 3 years, including this year, they have been doing the same. I think we can quickly move on to the other part. Anything you would like to add here, Vikrant, on this particular?
No, that's okay. I think this is exactly how it has been for the last 3 years. So
yes. So no surprises.
We've in fact shown. I think this is practically an identical table to the one that we showed in all our IIFT sessions. Right. On this channel, so let's see.
So guys, here is what we feel based on our analysis, a good number of attempts could be. Sure. Quant, there could be 12 to 13 questions that could be attempted by a good student who's very serious contender to the IIFT interview call. So with an accuracy of about 85%. So we are talking about 10 corrects and 2 wrong. So we are talking about 28 marks here from the quant section. If you move on to the RC part, the accuracy this year could go low simply because while you might have higher accuracy in RC this year, because of the few attempts you might be ending up doing in the verbal ability section, we believe the overall accuracy will be lower. And the attempts will be higher still because students can't refrain themselves, stop themselves from clicking on that vocab just by guessing. They always feel that, okay, I haven't attempted anything in vocab. I just attempted 2 RCs. I can't leave with 8 questions. So I'll just keep clicking some 5-6 questions there. So based on that, we feel that a 65 to 70% accuracy is what we have taken. Vikrant, do you agree 65 is too low, or you think student can?
I think yes, that should work. It's not that the questions, there were some easy questions, but then you're absolutely right. There are times when students do allow that pressure to get to them, and they end up attempting those questions that they should have let go of. So that definitely will have a bearing this time around.
So we are talking about 12 corrects and around 6 to 7 wrongs. So we are talking about 36 minus 6, that's about 30 marks in your English section. So that could be a good score. Moving on to the DILR part, here the attempts this year would be a 15, 16. I will not be surprised if students end up doing 17, 18 attempts too, because this is the section which will actually propel your score. Because the attempts will be higher here and the accuracy will also be higher, unlike English where the accuracy will be much lower. So this is one section where out of 15 you get probably 12 corrects and 3 wrongs. You'll end up getting something like 36 minus 3, so that's about 33 marks. That's the scoring area this year as far as the IIFT exam goes, DI and LR section. So students who realize this would ideally spend 5-6 extra minutes compared to what they would have planned earlier. So normally if you say that I'm going to spend about 40 minutes in quant, probably about 5 minutes in general awareness, another 40 minutes here, so you'll be looking at, so in fact, English, there's no point 40 minutes, I believe, right, Vikrant? Because you'll be done with 19 questions in about 5-6 minutes. And you'll only be left with probably 4 RCs, and 4 RCs out of which you can pick 2 and then move on to the other section. So I think around 25-30 minutes, 30-35 minutes would be a good amount of time in this. 35? Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
RC and vocab part?
Absolutely. Should not have
so and depending, so for example, English is not my strength, so what I did was I made 45 here and I made 30 here. So these small adjustments, because my strengths are quant and DILR, so I spent 40 minutes on quant. I started off with quant, then I saw English. I realized that okay, I have to quickly move on from English because this is not something which I can sit and score well. Especially had it been VA been easier, I would have spent some more time there, but there's no point. So I closed everything in about 30 minutes. GK, I just kept sifting through. There's nothing much I could do. 3-4 questions I got somewhere in between, and then moved on. The last 45 minutes was completely on DILR. So ideally, this is what a student could have done. And finally, the general awareness part. if you have been following the current affairs like what Vikrant has been saying, you should be ideally getting somewhere around 6 marks or 5 to 6 marks.
True.
So we are talking about a total of 28, 30, 33 and around 6 marks. So that adds up to 9, 17 and 107. So around 105 to 107 is a good score for you to expect in this. But again guys, don't worry too much about final score, because as you all know, or if you don't know, please know it right now, IIFT has only 73% weightage to your IIFT score for the interview call. The remaining 23% weightage is based on your 10th score, 12th score, gender diversity and academic diversity. In fact, my colleague Mr. Gautam Bawa has taken a comprehensive session to explain to you the difference between the best case scenario versus the worst case scenario. How much of a difference can there be in getting the score? If you followed that session, you will notice that an engineer with male engineer with less score in 10th and 12th, less score is probably in the range of 80% in 10th and 80% in 12th. This kind of a student should target at least 107 to 108, right? If you are a engineering female, so straight away you'll be getting 2 percentage marks without doing anything much. That will translate into almost 8 marks into IIFT. So if you're talking about same qualities, that is same 80% 10th and 12th, you are a female but engineer, you will probably be required to get a 98 or a 99 in this year's paper. And probably if you have better scores in your 10th and 12th, touching 90 plus, this requirement will go down even further. It can go as low. In fact, we had students last year getting calls at 89, 85, 86 marks in IIFT also. So guys, it's a function of your IIFT score, your 10th, 12th and graduation score. It's not graduation, sorry, 10th, 12th, graduation discipline and gender. Right, so I'll explain to you at the end of the session how to calculate what could be your overall effective score and whether you can expect a call from it or not. So please hold on to it, right? So I'll do that at the end of the session. I'm going to discuss about it. All right. All yours, the RC part and VA in-depth analysis right now, Vikrant, over to you.
Right. Sure. So a lot of you are asking about or sharing your 10th, 12th marks, etc. So we have a very detailed video made by GB, and the overall cutoffs this year, since they are going to be similar to last year's, you can actually access that video. It was aired some 5 or 6 days ago. It'll answer all your questions. Ganesh, you wanted to know about 5 marks, sectional cutoff, GK. I think you should be there. I think you should be safe. And then, yes, graduation marks are not considered for calling you. The diversity, yes. The discipline, yes. But the marks, no. And now, how much in-depth would you guys want to go? So do you want me to go ahead and talk about all the questions along with the answers as much as I recall? And not only that, I think once we start looking at the questions, I do need help from you. If you can share the answers and the ones that you marked and the thought process that basically you went through while eliminating the options, I can pitch in even more. So we've already given you the overall lowdown. So let us dive in. Could somebody from the team give me the writing rights?
Yeah, you have it, I guess. I can see what you're writing.
Fantastic. So that's my screen there. Yeah. So you have the composition on your screen. VARC 19 VA, 16 RC questions. RCs were on the whole moderate. 2 of them were easy in terms of familiarity. Another one passage was easy to moderate, and then there was this one passage which turned out to be a little more technical, but those of you who have studied economics hopefully should have found that easy. And VA this time around was practically vocab after vocab after vocab based questions. So let us dive in. So we have this overall analysis of quant here, I reckon. First.
Oh, okay. So I will come back to that.
So
we'll come back to that. You can finish off with the English first.
Sure. Right. So here is the breakup of the passages for you. So 4 passages with 4 questions each. Now we often emphasize that it is important for us to prioritize our passages so that we are able to move from easy to difficult. So there was a passage which talked about globalization, the world becoming flat in terms of business. Remember the passage that started off by telling us about that incidents in Japan?
Japan.
Oh,
yes.
sorry. So here is it. So 9 years ago, when Japan was beating America's brains out in the auto industry, I wrote a column about playing the computer geography game, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego, and then he expected the answer to be Detroit from that other person, but the other person said Japan, and then it moved towards India. So that was the absolutely. So that turned out to be the easiest passage of the lot in terms of not only the ease of reading, but also in terms of the questions that the passage had. Right. So that is the passage that you perhaps that has been labeled as the third passage here on international economy. Then there was a passage which talked about developing self-esteem and confidence through affecting your subconscious psychology. I found that passage to be fairly easy and interesting. Yes. The questions, at least two of the questions were easy. One could have very easily answered them. And then the third passage that I would have picked up, and this is actually subjective. I've studied psychology, so for me that passage, the subject matter was right up my alley. But then there was a passage which talked about international economy will continue to be characterized by various regional and national economies moving at significantly different speeds. So this was this would have been my third passage, and then finally that currency manipulation one, where the questions also turned out to be a tad bit challenging. So that was what we really had in terms of the content. And if I run you through the passages, and I can actually run you through the passages. So let's pick up that Japan one first. Do you remember the questions? Anybody? Can you share the questions? Or should I start?
Yeah,
so
I think
two of the questions in that passage.
Yeah, you can start off with the answers that you remember. Yeah, please.
Yeah, two of the questions essentially were questions that you and I would typically call specific detail questions, where they basically asked us which of the following is or are correct. So in the first one, so I don't know in which sequence you got these, but I'd share my answers. I found both of those to be easy. So in one of those, the answer was, as the countries like India, China, Russia, etc. keep growing, and then it ended with beginning of the globalization of innovation. And then the second question, the correct answer was Ollie's initial reply was not what the author expected. That was straight up from the very first paragraph. Then there was a question which required you to interpret an expression in the context of the passage. So the examiner asked us for the meaning of the world is flat.
Flat, yeah.
So, and then there was a main idea question. This was the only main idea question in the entire exam, but the options were very easy. It was fairly easy to rule out. One of those was irrelevant. Two of them talked about only one paragraph each, and there was an option which talked about convergence of technological and other forces allow business to connect and collaborate with each other, etc. That's the one that we could have or should have picked up. So if you finding this discussion useful, here, why don't you?
As a student, one query to you. So that particular question and the answer, do you think that was really the central passage, central idea of the passage, or that was the best possible answer given the four?
The best possible answer. So I think over the years what I've realized is that if we were to sit down and write a main idea, we'd normally end up doing a better job.
Right.
And as a result, we generally work using elimination, and that is what we advise all our students to do as well.
Because I started off by eliminating. I said, okay, 1 gone, 2, 3, 4, all of them are eliminated. Then I went back, okay, now which one should I keep? Retain. So, and then ended up with that option B. But I don't think it was something which in the first go you'll see, unless you read all 4 and then realize, okay, this is a better sounding option than the other 4, other 3. So I think that was true. True. That's fine.
No, I think we also have that bias towards our own areas. No, we generally look at a question and we find them easier. So I normally try to temper it. A lot of you are still talking about your bad experience with the interface and the nosy attendants there. Dude, since all of us have gone through it, it is not a relevant factor anymore. Okay, so if something becomes a problem, something becomes an issue only when it affects only some of us and not all of us. So, guys, why do I see very few likes on this session? Yeah, come on.
Guys,
just hit some more likes and we can actually get into
for the question. So give us some likes right now. I'd like to see some increase in likes so that we can go ahead and start discussing the questions.
Which passage would you like me to pick up next? Come on, let's see. I'll just look at the first comment and then I'll pick up that particular passage and we can go ahead and talk about it. And in case you don't recall, we've already discussed one of the passages. And then there was a passage which talked about using subconscious through self-hypnosis to bypass your conscious mind and achieve success. There was a passage which talked about artificially depreciating the value of a country's currency. There's a passage which talked about different rates of growth in global economy.
Okay, we've got
so the first one is from, first one is from XOXO. I've recently learned it's called Kisses and Hugs. So economics, there are two more passages from economics. Which one would you want me to pick up? But chalo, I'll just exercise my judgment and pick up the currency manipulation one in that case. Okay, so the currency manipulation passage essentially talked about the fact that there are some countries that artificially depreciate their currencies or their exchange rates. As a result, it leads to an increase of trade deficit for some other countries, especially countries like the US and the EU. And then it ended up by talking about the measures that the affected countries can go on to take. So it is something that keeps on appearing on the business pages of your newspapers, and there are a lot of articles that you typically find in business magazines as well. The first question was a question that asked us to explain the term currency manipulation, which basically meant keeping the value depreciated. And then there was a question which asked us for the meaning of the result is a net drain on aggregate demand in the US and Euro area. So how does that demand go down? So imagine if there is a country which manufactures this pen for 10 rupees, and if I manufacture it here, it costs 12 rupees. My people are likely to buy it from them. And as a result, the local businesses are going to get affected by that. So, and as a result, the net drain on aggregate demand here would essentially lead to the loss of economic, commercial, financial opportunities, etc. for the local businesses. But this was definitely a moderate question. And then there was a question which Srinivasan sir highlighted earlier, what kind of action is most likely to be taken by the US, where all the four options were presented in the last paragraph. So this is, in a way, a glimpse of the decision-making section of ZAT for you. So how do you take decisions? You would ideally like to opt for a decision that helps you meet your objectives at the minimum cost and minimum risk, right? So out of the four options, now that is something that we'd also have to sit down, discuss, debate and finalize. But then I could eliminate a couple of them straight away. For example, approaching WTO, because that involved, I hope it was WTO, right? Because that involved collaborating with other countries that will also be long-term. Then there was an option that talked about levying some import duties and introducing import restrictions. Now the passage did talk about import duties, it did not talk about import restrictions. Yeah. So that was one negative for this answer choice. And the second is that when you start levying duties, at the end of the day, that product becomes more expensive for your consumers as well. And you will not have some industry, some segment which will start supplying or manufacturing those things locally overnight. So those are the kind of things that I used to push the options down. The reason I thought the one which was called CCI, where you also start buying their currency in equal measure, that neutralizes it. So at that moment I felt that that is going to be completely in their control, and it can give immediate results.
Option, if I'm not mistaken,
and can be.
That is the second option. Option number 2.
So it was the second. Did everyone have all the options in the same order?
That's I think so. Options were same, I guess. Options were same this time.
The options were the same, then maybe yes. So that is why. Had I realized that, I would have just jotted the options.
Yeah.
Okay. Terrific. Then there was a question which basically asked us which of the following is not false, or in other words, which of the following is true, right? So option number 2 and option number 4 were easy to rule out. At the end of the day, it all boiled down to option number 1 and option number 3. And that is where it became tricky, and that is why we'd say that the question was moderate. Then, but of the two, the one that I chose, I did not really mark the option, but it was the answer that started with widespread currency manipulation, mainly in developing and newly industrialized economies, is the most important development of the past decade in the international financial markets. Oh, sorry, this is the passage, my bad. So I think I've forgotten to write which one I marked there, but the answer was one of the two. I think option 1. Then there was a passage on subconscious. Let's take a break from economics and talk about it. Question number 1. If you want to change your mind from negative to positive, then which of the following do you need to do? So remember, there was an option that talked about uncritical acceptance. Easy to eliminate options, because passage very categorically mentioned that subconscious mind is not critical or analytical. So 2 of the options could have been, in fact 3 of the options could have been eliminated there itself. Then there was a question that talked about most effective way to reprogram mind. And once again, 3 options were fairly easy to eliminate, and then we were left with that daily practice of yoga, etc. That is going to be the best way out. Then using willpower to make permanent changes. There was a question on that. This was a moderate question. And then there was a question which talked about the subconscious mind, which once again had 2 easy to eliminate options. If our subconscious mind captures negative thoughts or positive thoughts, or it runs through conscious mind, these are the kind of options. So the correct option was that it captures negative thoughts. Okay, and that takes us to the last RC passage, which dealt with the various countries growing at unequal pace and the challenges therewith. In fact, if I look at the summary, it's a different rates of growth in global economy and its challenges along with its impact on the world. And then there was a last paragraph that talked about the widespread use of communication technology and how that is likely to have an impact. So I'd say 3 of these, one question was easy, 2 of them were easy to moderate, and then there was one question which can be termed difficult. So there is a question that asked about which of the following is not a notable cause for multipolarity. Easy to moderate. I'm saying easy to moderate because 2 options were easy to rule out, and then you had to spend some more time, some more effort in eliminating the other 2. Then there was a question that asked about the causes for the chronic deficit in multilateral governance. Moderate question. A question that asked for which of the following is not a trigger for democratization. This was easy because the triggers were very clearly mentioned. Human Development Index and religion were not given as a factors in the passage, so those were the 2 that you should have marked. So 3rd and 4th were the answers, at least in my set. And then the last question was widespread use of communication technologies will lead to what? So they essentially paraphrased one of the sentences from that last paragraph to create the answer choice. Anybody who's good at comprehension could have picked it up with relative ease, but on the whole, I'd say it's an easy to moderate question. So that is about RC. And with that, let us now...
Dhruv, we don't know what was your last question in your first RC. So you have to give us a bit more of context.
Sure.
Because your RC
if you give me the question, I practically have the questions, all the 16 question stems, or at least part of them, along with a hint of the answers. If you share the question, hopefully we'd be able to help you with that. Then we have this verbal ability from last year. This year we, of course, did not have this breakup. So the breakup this year happened to be significantly different. So let me take you through all the verbal ability questions. Okay, I'm using this blank slide, or maybe we can go ahead and add to it. So let us see.
You can,
so first
you
up,
can just go back one more slide and you'll have a blank slide here itself.
Oh, true. No, I can at least, oh, that's actually even better.
Yeah.
So there was this one fill in the blank question with 4 blanks and you had to choose the answers. On the whole, I'll call it easy to moderate. But
in fact, I agree that I think that was the only question which was doable in VARC easily.
True. The third blank, if you know the meaning of cogency and you know that when two things are joined using and they need to be similar, then the third blank was the easiest of the lot, and the moment you figured that out, the answer became obvious. So the answer choice where the first blank had antagonist, second, I accidentally said third blank. Second blank cogency, third bewitched, and the fourth one was then didactical.
So it's the answer option with antagonist in it, not the protagonist, right?
Absolutely. The one that started with antagonist, yes.
Okay.
Then we had 3 questions where an idiomatic expression was given to us and our job was to talk about the meaning of that idiom. One of the idioms was to bring someone to book, which basically means punish someone for the wrongdoings that he has engaged in. This was relatively easy because we encounter this particular idiom very frequently. Another one which is high frequency is fish out of water. So if you feel like a fish out of water, it means that you get uncomfortable because you're put in an unusual or unfamiliar situation. The third one was not a very high frequency idiomatic expression, irons in the fire. Okay, and the correct answer there was to have several different activities or projects in progress simultaneously. Progress at the same time. Then, after that, we had 2 questions that are conventionally called one-word substitution, where the examiner gives you the meaning and you need to figure out the word whose meaning that is. So, for the first question, the meaning or the definition provided was a long-standing habit, long accustomed, habituated, and the correct answer there was inveterate. So those of you who've gone through, say, something like Word Power Made Easy by Norman Lewis, you'd probably remember expressions like inveterate gambler. Okay? And then there was this next one which was outstandingly bad or vicious. The correct answer there was egregious. And once again, I think in one of our sessions too, we've talked about this root word Greg. Greg is group. E is the shortened form of X, which means out. So an egregious act is an act so horrible that you're thrown out of the group. Right? But this question was comparatively tougher because the other 3 options were also very challenging, unlike the previous question. So the other 3 options were salubrious, chronic, opprobrious. So chronic is easy, I think most of us would know that, but salubrious and opprobrious can at times turn out to be challenging. Salubrious means something which is healthful, something which is conducive to your health, and opprobrium is a severe criticism. So if you know those meanings, becomes easy. Otherwise, I'd say it was a moderate question. Then, as usual, we had 2 questions on root words or prefixes, suffixes. So one of the suffixes given to us this year was assent as used in the word senescent. So sen, senior, basically means old, and senescent is somebody who is getting old. The biological process of aging, and that is why for this particular question, the meaning of this particular suffix should have been growing or becoming. So senescent, you grow or you become old, right? And then the next one was agogos as used in the word
demagogue.
Demagogue. Now, you know, demagogue basically is a leader. Dema, people, democracy. Demagogue is a leader who can mislead the masses for his own benefit. Demagogue is a leader who will tell people what they want to hear so that he gets elected, even if what he says is not going to be right for the country or for that group, right? So, as a result, I think dema is people and gog basically means leading. So to lead people, it's a negative word, so actually it means to mislead people, but the correct answer would have been leading.
Vikrant,
Then,
I think we'll have to
in
be
my
a
set,
bit more faster because
faster? Okay,
we
sure.
have Snap
So
also
I'll
coming
skip
up.
writing.
Yeah, just
Okay, oh yes,
let's
we
go
need to
on
start
with
that
the
at 4. Okay.
yeah.
So I'll stop writing and I'll simply quickly give the
Yeah,
answer. So
if
there
you
were
could
two
just
questions where
discuss
we were asked the
let's not
antonyms.
discuss the answers. We'll say whatever we
get
think
it.
is the best answer and
Sure.
then move on.
Sure. So there were two questions on antonyms. But the words given were venal and laconic. The opposite of venal. Venal means corrupt. So the opposite was incorruptible. Then laconic means somebody who states things in a highly concise manner. And the correct answer for that question should have been pleonastic, because pleonastic means that you end up using more words than necessary. A close answer choice here was compendious, though. Some of us could have been misled by that. Then there were these two questions based on collective nouns, outright difficult questions, where they gave us a collective noun and then they asked for which of the following we cannot use this collective noun. So the first one was shoal, and the answer to this question should have been gnats. Gnats are those tiny little insects. And then the second was herd. The answer to that question should have been gulls, because a group of gulls is called a colony or a flock. But the other three, chamois, walruses, wrens, you can use the word herd for that. Were very difficult questions, both of them. Then two more questions that were based on one word substitution. So there was a question which asked about a state whose power derives from its naval or commercial supremacy. The correct answer was thalassocracy. Then the second was outstanding technical ability in a field. The correct answer was virtuoso. Then there was a question which was framed as a crossword, but the truth is, even that is a kind of one-word substitution, because meanings were given and you had to then accordingly pick up the right words. Right? So now, in the absence of that crossword, I think it'll become a bit challenging for me to explain it. But the answers for both the across words were incendiary and inveigle, and the downs were imbroglio and decrepit. Even if you cracked one of them, incendiary was an easy one. You could have after that attempted at least one more. So I'd say, as the one-word substitutes go, apart from the way the question was constructed and there were these 25 words, made it lengthy, made it challenging, it was still a doable question. Then, as usual, there was a question on the origin, based on the origin of the words. The correct answer was option 3. A cappella and prima donna, both of them happened to be Italian words. That was the correct answer. The rest of them were, of course, wrong. Then we had match the following words with their meanings. Remember that question where you had flotsam, insouciant, cautery, effrontery, phlegmatic, etc. So this I thought was a doable question, because some of these words are everyday, right? Cautery, phlegmatic, you would routinely encounter them in our classes at least. So that made it a moderate question. Then you were supposed to identify the misspelt word. The correct answer there was iniquitous. The spelling has an I-N-I, and that I after N was missing. Then we had one more question which was kind of one word substitution, where the same 25 words from that crossword were given, but this time around you had two definitions and you were supposed to pick up the relevant or corresponding words from there. And the correct answer there was hod units and volacious, respectively. So that's about all the 19 questions of verbal ability. And with that, we can
We'll move on to the GK part. I think a
slides.
lot of students were waiting for the GK, the much dreaded session.
Yes.
Team, if you can just give me the access of the screen. Yes, so we'll start off with the GK. The first answer for this question is Bali. The G20 summit was held in Bali. The second answer was Philippines. The third answer, important days. So the answers are like this. So International Literacy Day is 8th September. Then you have International Day for Monuments and Sites. I didn't even know this existed. But yeah, apparently this is on 18th of April. And World Environment Day is 5th of June. And the last is 11th of July. So these are the answers. It is a match the following kind of a thing, I believe. So this is the correct one.
True.
The next one is Dada Saheb Phalke Award was given to Asha Parekh in the year 2022. Then we have the next question, Marine Checkpoint in International Organization. So This basically is Strait of Malaysia. This is India and China. Strait of Hormuz. This is Persian Gulf and Oman Gulf. I think if you get these two correct, then the remaining will be falling in place, because there's only one option which had these two, falling in place. But if you want the others also, Bering Strait, I believe, is Pacific and Arctic Ocean, and Strait of Bab el Mandeb. How do you even pronounce it? Bab el Mandeb. This is between Yemen. It's a strait between Yemen and Arabian Peninsula, right? Moving on to the next one. Then we have a question on headquarters of IAEA. So where is this? This is in Vienna. All right. The next question is books and authors. These books are written by. So who was written what book? So China Room is written by Sanjeev Sahota. Where is that? Yes. Yeah, this is China Room. Then we have Acts of Desperation by Megan Nolan. So these two are connected. Then we have Tomb of Sand. I think Tomb of Sand is by Gitanjali Shri. And the remaining is Jhumpa Lahiri and Whereabout of Authors, or something. Whereabouts. Yeah. So this is the correct answer for that. The next one is Nikat Zareen. Basically, this is boxing. Then we have Match the Column Emperor. So basically we are talking about the emperor and the tomb option. So basically Babur was in Kabul. So Babur and Kabul. Akbar is Agra. Jahangir is Lahore. And Yangon was that Shah, that big name that was mentioned.
Bahadur Shah Jafar. Bahadur Shah Zafar.
Yeah, Bahadur Shah Jafar. Was it Jafar? I don't think it was Jafar, but yeah, could be. But there's some Shah in it.
I remember it to be Bahadur Shah Zafar, I think.
Who was the left out person? So Yangon is the person where I think his tomb is. So this is the answer to this. I think we already discussed quite a bit of the verbal ability section. So let's move on and take a look at the quant section
I think we've practically wrapped up all of these.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let me just go through the quant section first. So what exactly happened in quant, the breakup. So we had a total of 7 arithmetic questions from quant, and I believe 2 of them were only sitters. 3 of them were doable, easy to moderate level, and there were about 2 of them which were moderate to difficult level. Okay. Algebra, there were 3 questions, not very straightforward. Even the easiest of them, I would rate it as moderate and above. So the entire algebra, I will call it as moderate to difficult level. Number systems, there's only 1 question. Now, if you try to do it the mathematical way, it will become lengthy, but if you try to use options, it will become very easy. So those of you who've used options in this question, you'd have got the answer quickly. Then we had geometry and trigonometry. There were 8 questions. Again, a lot of questions from geometry and trigonometry. And there were 2 questions or 3 questions from trigonometry, heights and distances, pure trigonometry also. So that's something which usually we don't find in other MBA entrance exams. But I would say that these questions were doable. Some of them were difficult, but then overall, all these 8 questions, I will categorize them as moderate. Modern math, like last year, we had 4 questions of modern math. Again, not easy. Yes, one probability question probably was easy, but otherwise everything else was moderate and above moderate. And even if it is doable, it is not one-step problem. It had about 3 or 4 steps that you have to do, and then finally do some calculation to get your answer. So overall, I would probably call the modern math section as moderate and above moderate, or even difficult to a certain extent. But clocks and calendars, there are 2 questions, one on clock, one on calendars. Both of them were actually easy. So this is one. These are 2 questions where you could have solved them in probably 1.5 minutes each and got the correct answer without any tricks. It's a very straightforward question that you had. We had from these 2 areas. So let's take a look at the questions. In fact, let me go ahead and take a blank screen so that I can write few questions. This part is done. Yes. So guys, I will quickly discuss the questions of quant and I'll give you the answers that we believe are correct. I'm not going to solve the questions. Obviously, that's not the purpose over here. So please be ready. If you are not getting the correct answers, don't feel bad. There are the cutoffs will not be very high in quant. Starting with the first question in quant, in my paper we had a clocks question, which two clocks were set at the right time at 7 a.m. At what time will they, so 7 a.m. 12th Jan, they were set correctly. 7 p.m. 17th Jan. What will be the time shown by the slower clock? There's one clock which is slow. So the correct answer to this will be 8:20:45. This is the correct answer. The answer option was C. The second question that I had was time and work. Two pipes can fill in 12 hours and 18 hours. And when there is a leakage also involved, then it will take 36 more minutes. This is a question, and the answer to this was 93.6 hours. The question asked is, if the tank is full and only the leak is working, what is the time taken for the water to be drained out completely? And that is about 93.6 minutes. Again, this question is easy. The concept is easy. The problem is the numbers were not really nice. So you can see the answer is 93.6 hours. Not a very nice number. The divisions, it will take a little bit of time for you to calculate, not straightforward. But yeah, the concept is simple. So I would still call this as an easy to moderate level paper, simply because the concept is known. It's just the calculation which will take a little bit of time. Then we had a third question coming up based on the SICI part. So 6.5% simple interest and 7.5% simple interest, 3 years. The total amounted to 400 rupees. What was the total sum of the principals together? So this answer is 1890. 1890 is the answer to this. Okay. Moving on. The next is question number 4. We had, we had 20% green. Yeah, so we had so there's a mixtures question. So this question is based on 4:5 ratio. Two things are mixed. One is a green liquid and the other is some other liquid, and it is sold at 20% profit at 20 rupees. So 20 rupees is selling price. You are selling it at 20% profit. So what is the cost of the green? What is the cost of the green liquid? So the answer to this was 18.88 rupees per liter. Okay, so this is the answer here. Then the next one was question number 5. We had a question on quadratic equations. There's one question on ax square plus 2x plus 3 equal to 0, and they gave alpha equal to beta square, and they gave another one b equal to minus 14, and so on and so forth. So there are two quadratic equations given. They said that alpha is the root of the first equation, beta is the root of the second equation, and what happens there. So there the correct option was option D. If I remember correctly, it is 64a plus 4a b square plus 32ab is 275. This was the correct answer. Okay, answer option 4. Moving on quickly to question number 5. 5 is done. Question number 6 was a heights and distances question, where a tree and a bank question. So initially it was at 60 degrees, then it was at 45 degrees, then it was at 30 degrees. So the correct answer here was C, 5√3. Okay, so that's the answer here. Option 5, the value was 5√3. The next question, I think, there's the next question on Premchand. And we had people who read Premchand, people who read Shakespeare, and people who read Tolstoy. The answer to this was 50. Once again, I think the answer was option B. 50 people belong to all three, or 50 people read all three books or clubs. I don't remember, remember it was clubs or books, but that's the answer. Then we had the next next question on 55% a student got in 6 subjects, and the ratio of the subjects, the marks that he got is 10, 9, 8, 7. This is the question. The answer to this is 4. 4 subjects, option C. 4 subjects he will get the minimum cutoff requirement. That is the answer to this particular question. Then we had a question on probability. I think there's a question on probability where probability of getting odd number is twice probability of getting even number on a die. So a die is being thrown 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, and then if 1, 2 or 3 comes, you pick from bag A, and if 3, 4, 5 comes, you pick from bag B. And then they ask you what is the probability of getting a green ball. So finally they asked what is the probability of getting a green ball. The answer to this was option A, 38 by 81. This was the answer here. Then we are talking about the next question, which is based on 900 digits. You need to get 900 digits using 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and it's an n digit number. Okay, so what is the minimum number of digits do you need? So the answer to this question is B, 6. You need 6 digits to get what they have mentioned. Then you had a question on triangles. So 21, 20 and 13 are 3 sides of a triangle, and some construction has been done on that. 30% of the area of smaller triangle they are asking, something related to that. The answer here is option C, 9. The value is 9. Moving on, then we had a couple of more questions. Yes, so there's one question on factory manufacturing. Factory manufacturing, 1200 units of something, 900 units were produced and only 750 were sold or something like that. 785 were sold, sorry. To this particular question, the answer is option C, 799. Okay. Then moving on. Then we had largest 5-digit numbers which when divided by 4, 9 and 11 gives the same remainder but the highest possible remainder. The answer to this is option D, 99795. So this is the correct answer to this particular question. Again, this is the one I'm talking about, a numbers based question. It is difficult if you try to get to the answer directly, but if you use the options, you can divide this each of the options by 4 and 9. Division by 4, division by 9 is very simple. So you can find out what is the remainder when you divide by 4, what is the remainder when you divide by 9. Because to find the remainder for 4, you have to just use the last 2 digits. Similarly, so you can find if the remainder is not same, anyway that is not your answer, and you'll move on to the next option. And there's only one option where the remainders will be same, and that itself is option D. Okay. Then the next question is based on chords in a circle. So we have a circle like this, and there were 2 chords given to us, and people were traveling A, D, B, E and C. So somebody is going like this and somebody is going like this. Some speed and distance has been given. So the correct answer to this is option C, 3 hours. Okay, the correct answer to here is option C, 3. Then we had a progressions question where they mentioned A minus D, A plus D and A plus 2D, and similarly A plus D, A plus 2D, A plus 3D. So that's the progressions question. Now this, if you try to derive the answer, it's going to become very lengthy. The best way to do that is take A equal to 2 and take D equal to 1. So basically you will be getting these numbers as 1, 2, 3, 4, and the next series will be 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can straight away put these in the options and eliminate the options. You'll get only one correct answer. Obviously that is option D. I mean, I'm not going to write it because it's very lengthy. I think I can write this for your reference. A square plus D square plus 3AD whole square plus something else is also there. So this is the correct answer for this particular question on progressions. Then we had, okay, there's one easy question after that on spheres. So there's one sphere of diameter 10. 2/5 of it was melted down, or it was melted and 2/5 of the volume was taken, and you're forming smaller spheres of diameter 2. So what is the total surface area ratio? So the answer here was 2:1 ratio of the total surface areas. Then the next question was based on time and distance, time, speed and distance, that is basically trains. So there are 2 trains going with 54 and 40 kilometers per hour speed of 54 and 40 kilometers per hour. And they were asking the lengths of the train. So the length answer was 70. That is option B. Right. So these are some of the quant questions that I can remember. Okay, I have 1 or 2 more questions actually to go. There's one question on calendar. The calendar answer was Friday. Okay, the correct answer was Friday to this. This was actually an easy question. You could have done it within 30-40 seconds. Just count the number of odd days and your answer is done. And the last question that I remember that I noted down is this figure, a square, and there are 3 circles here. what is the area of the shaded portion of the circles? Shaded portion of the figure, area of the circles basically. So the answer here was, it had 34 minus 14 root 5 into, I think, pi b square by 16, something like this. It's the one which had root 5 and negative in it. That is the correct answer to this question. I think that was option C. Yeah, if I remember it correctly, it is option C. Okay. Well, guys, these are the questions which have come from your quantitative section. Let me move on to the DILR part and see if I can discuss a little bit about the DILR. What happened in the DILR part before we move on to the question. So we had totally 16 questions coming in from data interpretation, 4 sets of 4 each. One set was tables. This was the easiest set in my opinion in this entire paper. The reason why I'm calling it as easiest is because if you spend something like 6 to 7 minutes, you'll get 4 questions. That's huge in this kind of a paper. Then we had a pie chart plus a line graph. This is not easy. It will take a little bit of time. It is based on a bit of calculation. It was calculation intensive actually. So you'll require some time to solve this question. Then you had a DI set on double pie chart. This is basically on males and female athletes. This set, 2 questions could be done easily. 2 questions required a lot more calculation. So if you're smart, you'd have done these 4, and in these 4 you'd have picked 2. Sorry, not this. In this 4 you'd have picked 2. So these you'll be able to attempt 6 for sure here. Now this DI stacked bar set was actually moderate, and in fact I would call it as much above moderate or difficult for that matter, because I'm pretty sure a lot of students would not even have understood the meaning of the question. This is the question which had 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 and 90 crores, and there is stacked bar chart given. So first you have to identify which part of the bar is reflecting or is a reflection of what number, 40, 50, 60, 70. Once you get that, then you will have to, that itself will take time. That realization is the difficult part there. It took me a minute to understand what is happening there, but then as I said, it's not an easy set because it doesn't strike to everyone. So ideally these 6 questions could have been attempted in the DI part, but when it comes to logic part, the games and tournaments, these 4 questions were moderate and the circular arrangement set was moderate, but these 7 questions could have easily been done, attempted by a student. You had a linear arrangement, Tony, Rebecca and something like that, Michael and all. Then we have a algebra caselet, which was a little bit of finding your values of x and y, I guess. Then you had one question on routes and networks where you had 8 stations. You need to buses need to take people from one station to another station. Direct buses only have to be there and so on and so forth. So all these were easy. So let's quickly go ahead and see some of the answers from these sections too. Let me see if I have the questions with me. Yes, so I have some questions. Let me discuss some of the questions at least for the DI part. Right. Okay guys, so the 2 diagram question, which is Italy and Australia, the 2 pie diagrams, you had Italy, Australia, Brazil, the athletes, female athletes and male athletes. So the first answer to this question, the question was total number of female athletes who participated in, so female more than male. Female is 15,000. Female given to you total is 15,000. Then how many countries had the number of male athletes less than the number of female athletes? So basically female more than male. So the answer here is option B, 3 countries. 3 countries had females more than males or males less than females. Okay. Then the next question in this particular set was if the average number of male athletes from all the given countries is 400. So average male is 4,000. This is the question, and the answer option is D, 2418 was the answer option to this particular question. Then you had a third question in the next Olympics of 2025 Olympics. The total number of male and female athletes from Australia, Brazil and Canada increases by 25%, increased by 22.5% and so on and so forth. This particular question, in fact, okay, the options were not written over here, so I think I'll skip this. I don't have the options with me. Fourth question was if the total number of athletes who participated, so total athletes who participated in the given country is female. So one question was on 15,000. This another question had 18,000 female athletes. This is the $18,000 question. In this particular, the answer is 5:9, option A. So these are the correct answers for the first DI set. Let's move on and take a look at the next set of DI. Then we had, yes, so the next DI set was based on revenue and profit. Revenue, profit. There's a table given on revenue and profit. This is the set I'm talking about. In this, the first question was, in which of the following years the cost price is highest? Cost price per unit is highest. This was 2006. The correct answer here is 2006. Okay. Then we have 2. What is the opposite average number of units of steel being sold during 2005 to 2012? So the question, what is the ratio of the lowest and highest per unit price? So ratio of highest and lowest price. So this is 4:7, option B. This is the correct answer. Then we had another question which is, okay, I don't think we are able to note down the next question. So I had answers only for these two. We will definitely put up the correct answers for all the questions on our website, but right now I have answers to only these two because other two questions we are not able to, at least we are not able to put it together right now. But let's move on to the other sets of DI. There's one question on COVID patients. COVID patients, the first question is, the first answer is 223:97. So this question was talking about in July 2021, the number of COVID-19 positive female patients is 194. That is the question to which the answer is 223:97. Then we are talking about the second question. Right, just a moment. Yeah, so the second question is the number of admitted patients raised by 40% from March to August. The increase is 40%. This question, the answer is 315. Then third question, and this is April 2021, if the respective ratio of the number of admitted patients to the number of patients found positive is 5:4. This is the question to which the answer is option A, 30. And finally, we had question number 4. In June 2021, if the difference between the number of male COVID-19 patients and the female COVID-19 patients was 92. If this was given, this is the information given, the answer to this particular question was 600, D. So these are the questions that we could remember right away and put it as a part of the analysis. There were a lot more questions on the logical front which could be done. In fact, I remember the bus answers, the bus question of the buses, the number of buses you need. First answer was 112 and the second answer was 52, if I remember this correctly. Right, so these are some of the questions that I remember up front. So let's go ahead and take a look at the cutoffs, what you can be expecting, right guys?
Yeah. This is something that a lot of people were waiting for.
Yeah. So that's why I just very quickly wrapped it up because I'll be having that 4 o'clock analysis of SNAP too. So
you have that SNAP, we have a SNAP session too, yes.
So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Last year we saw the cutoff for, so in fact if you look at 2020 and 2021, 2020 paper was actually very easy. 2020 paper was actually easy. 21 paper was difficult, and this year 2022 we are saying that the cutoffs will be slightly lower for English. We are saying that the 19 will probably come down to 11 or 12. For DILR from 13 it could come down, it will actually go up, in my opinion it will go up from 13 to probably 14, 15, that's okay. But guys, don't think too much about the cutoffs because this is, if you add this all, it will barely add up to 30, 32. But that is not sufficient for you. Your cutoffs here are basically to make sure that you get the minimum requirement in each section. So the changes here will not be much. But the biggest change will probably be looking at what will happen in the overall value. So let's take a look at that. But before that, 8 will remain 8 for a quant, and general awareness will actually go down by a little, is our opinion. This is the cutoffs section wise. for each one of the sections over here and categories. So SC, ST, PWD will more or less have the same cutoffs that happened last year too. And for general and EWS and OBC, typically the cutoffs will be in this range. Okay, last year they had cutoffs of general NC-OBC to be same as the cutoff for SC, ST and PWD candidates, right? But if you're looking at the overall effect, I told you, I'll explain to you how the calculation works, right? It's not 8 questions correct, but guys, these are marks. 8 questions correct is too much. These are marks, okay? So these are marks, okay? Now, guys, it's very difficult to say what will be a cutoff for IIFT overall. Now, the reason is it all depends on, look at it, your IIFT weightage is 73% on exam.
I think we had it on one of the slides.
Yes, yes. Acha, we have that?
To show that. I think we have a slide somewhere.
Yeah, I think.
So that's the last.
Yeah, so this is, yeah, we have it here. Correct. So if you notice, IIFT exam is only 73% weight, carries only 73% weight, whereas marks of 10th and 12th will carry 10 and 10, that's 20%. If you are a non-engineer, 5%, and gender diversity is 2%. So this adds up to 27% of the weight. Now what does it mean? It means the worst case scenario is you are a general, male and engineer, which means you'll get a 0 here, you'll get a 0 here. And assuming that you are getting only around 8 and 8 here, instead of 10 you're getting just about 8 and 8. A student like this in this year's paper will ultimately should target around 105 to about 110. This should be the target for this kind of a student. General, male, engineer, 8 and 8 in your 8 and 8 in your 10th and 12th. 8 and 8 meaning you're getting out of 10 points, you're getting 8 points. Now, how do you calculate the points? It's already discussed in one of our videos. If you are 90% and above in your 10th and 12th, you will get 10 out of 10 points. If you are 80 to 90, you will get, I think, 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10. So there is a table given there. So you have to follow the table. Now, the conversion... We have it on
our slides too, but Srinivas, can you please show the last slide?
We have it here. Yes, we have it here.
There were some students who...
So we have it here.
In the... can you go back by a couple of slides? Some people want to know about the cutoffs for general category, etc. So right. the next one.
Yeah, this one. This one, right?
Can we move ahead a bit? There is a slide titled IIFT 23-25 Expected Cutoffs.
Yeah, this one.
I think this is something that a lot of people were asking about the cutoffs. So I think this slide will answer a lot of those concerns.
Right. So we, as I said,
Narayan Sahil, I hope.
This is similar to what we are talking about last year. Last year we had a cutoff of 11 marks in quant. This year also we are saying it's going to be remaining at 11 to 12. Last year we had logical reasoning having about 14 marks. This year we expect LRDI to go up slightly more because it was very much easier compared to last year. So we are expecting the cutoff to be in the range of 18 to 20. Quant will remain the same. Last year it was 8. I will not be surprised if it is 8 or slightly less than 8 at 7.5. So I'm putting a range of 8 to 9, 7.5 to 9 is what my range would be.
Absolutely.
And general awareness would ideally go down by half a mark or 1 mark. So even 3.5 is not something that I'll be surprised with. So this is the cutoff that we need for this particular year, guys. This is 2023.
So you have the sectional cutoffs, you have the overall cutoffs, you have mapped, all of these are mapped by their categories, and yes. We've already told you that this is just a cutoff. Okay, what you need for getting a call is different.
This is the total
overall cutoff.
Yeah, total score, weighted score, that is. So guys, keep this in mind. Last year 42.6 was the overall weighted score at which you got a call if you're a general category. So this year we are assuming the similar values to continue. So we're looking at 42.5 to 43. That's around the range you're looking at. For a safe buffer, take it as 43 here. I will take this as probably around 35.2 or 35.3. Similarly, this 27, make it 28. Now this is the starting point for your calculation. So you need a total score of 28 or 42.6 or 43. That is what you need to keep in mind. Now what does it mean? This is not your IIFT score. So this is what I want you to carefully follow. Okay. So if you want a 43 score based on this 43, so this is where the total should add up to. So out of this 100, you need 43 if you are a general category. So if you are a female, you already got 2 points. If you are a non-engineering female, you already got 7 marks, total 7. if you got above 90% in your 10th and 12th, look at this, this is the table that they are following. If you're getting above 90 in both 10th and 12th, so you will get 10 out of 10. So out of the 43 that you need, out of the 43 that you need, 10 plus 10, so 27 you can get if you are a female non-engineer doing really good in your 10th and 12th. So from your IIFT, while IIFT has 330 marks, you need an equivalent of only the remaining, which is 16 marks. 20, 30, 37, 43, right? So 16. So 73% weightage out of how much will give you 16? This is what you need to calculate. So let us say you got X marks in IIFT, X out of 300 X out of 300. Sorry, so X out of, not 330 marks, 300. So X out of 300. So out of 100 you will get. So basically whatever you score, you get X by 3 into 0.73. So this should be equal to your 16. Okay, so your X should be 16 into 3. So in fact, for simplicity's sake, do this calculation, guys. X into 3 by 4 and by 3 is equal to 16. So 3 and 3 gets cancelled, so you need 16 into 4. So frankly, at a 64 marks, you can expect a call equivalent to last year if you have these 3 going your way, 27. So the calculation is very simple. Your X is the score you need in your IIFT. So the 3 and 3 anyway get cancelled, so basically X by 4 is what you will be looking at. This X by 4 should be equal to this number that you get. How do you get this number? To get this number, you go back to this slide, look at, let's say you're NCOBC. You are looking at 35.1 last year. To be on the safe side, let's say you take 36. So you need total to be 36. So total is 36. Come back to this slide, look at how many marks you're getting here, how many points you're getting here. Non-engineering, are you getting 0 or 5? Female, you're getting 0 or 2. Male or female, 0 or 2. So if you're getting 8 here, if you're getting 6 here, you're getting 5 here, and you're getting 2 here, it means the total is already 10, 21. So out of 36 you need, 21 you already got. So the remaining is only 15 points, which means X by 4 should be equal to 15, so X should be equal to 60. At 60 you'll get your call from IIFT. So this is the calculation that you need to do. So please plug in these values. The range for IIFT will be very, very varied. People with different backgrounds will have a lot of effect. The requirement of your totals will be going down drastically based on what is happening here. So the worst case scenario is a GEM engineer, as I said. If you want 43 as a total score, GEM engineer, you got 8 and 8, and you're getting 0 here and 0 here. So you got only 16. So the entire, the remaining part of this entire score should come from your IIFT. So X by 4 should be equal to 43 minus 16. Just do this. So your X should be equal to 4 into how much is that? 4, 6, 7 and 27. So this will be 8 to 108. So you need a 108 score. So this is the way in which you can calculate, because as I said, it's very wrong to say that 100 is going to be the cutoff. It doesn't make sense. It all depends on what is the marks, what are the marks you're getting in these 4 places. So I'm explaining to you how to calculate your required score. I hope this is more or less informative to you, and this will help you clarify on what score you can expect. So minimum cutoff for each section we have given here. This is a section cutoff based on your category, minimum for each section. But overall, the calculation is supposed to be done the way that I just explained. Right? Vikrant, anything you would like to add before we wind up from our side?
No, that should do. I think most of the individuals are asking these questions. I hope you'd be able to now calculate it. Srinivas has done a fabulous, very detailed job for you. And a lot of you are asking for GK questions. See, we have shared quite a few of the GK questions that we could get. And don't worry, by evening, hopefully, we'd be able to add even more questions to the kitty. We've practically talked about all the VA questions, almost all the RC questions, and a lot of GK questions, a lot of Quant DILR questions. By evening, you'd have more.
All right.
So don't worry.
So guys, thanks a lot for being with us. Please give us a like before you wind up. Please follow us on all these channels, because we're going to do this kind of an analysis for ZAT. We are going to do an analysis for SNAP.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of analysis coming your way because there are a lot more exams left out. So all the best for your future exams. Don't panic. We are here to help you out. Follow us on our YouTube channel. We're going to conduct a lot of sessions for ZAT as well as other MBA entrance exams coming your way. Thank you and see you soon.
Take care.